So it's quite interesting. So going back a couple of steps. So um, I think what I got from your first part of your answer is, perhaps as architects, perhaps as landscape architects, that we need to begin to just think about our substrates in a different way, and perhaps the go-to specification is BS58. The BS standard for your sandy loam topsoil. Done, put it in specification, done. But I guess the message you're trying to put across is, perhaps in certain areas, perhaps for food production, perhaps under lawns or whatever, specify that. But let's just not go for the default soils, and be thinking about the substrate in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting in any way that we take, we suddenly go into a garden, take all the topsoil away and change it. I mean, what I am very interested in is the places where the topsoil is being removed. Yeah. So highways, developments. I mean, all these places where topsoil is routinely scraped off before work starts. And in fact, a lot of domestic big landscape projects similarly. Yeah. When that happens, you've already taken the topsoil off and you've put it in a corner somewhere. Then it's just, what I'm suggesting is think maybe where that topsoil is best used. So it's definitely best used in growing food. You might have a huge maintenance budget and want an incredible herbaceous border. Well, great, use your topsoil there. Yeah. But you don't have to use it everywhere. And certainly in public space on low maintenance budgets, which is what most of the landscape is, as soon as you introduce nutrient, as soon as your nutrient level goes up, as soon as your organic content of the soil goes up, your maintenance goes up. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Unless you cover it in fabric and bark and all those other things. So I guess I'm just, as the process, these things, the process of taking the soil has already been done. You've got massive machinery often on site on a lot of these projects. It's great to think about where that stuff is best used, because topsoil is an incredibly precious thing and we don't really need it everywhere. And if you, and in fact, of course, and you could then create incredibly diverse landscapes by not using it everywhere. And because you're mixing up the substrates, aren't you? You're given a choice. And the other, I think the other crucial thing, not only the maintenance, but because you're using mineral soils or construction waste, you can then direct sow into this stuff, because there's no weed bank in the soil. So as soon as you take away the topsoil, you're taking away the seed base, and therefore direct sowing into this stuff. And I've been doing it for many years here. It is, I mean, apart from few windblown weed seeds, there's no weed seeds in this stuff. So you can direct sow, and pretty much 90% of what's coming up is what you've sown. Now that is a massive advantage, because to prep topsoil to get it in that state, as you know, probably, and as any landscaper would know, and any person who's trying to create wildflower meadows or whatever they're trying to do, to get the soils in a state good enough to direct sow is quite hard, quite difficult. Yeah. And of course, weeds are not stupid enough to all germinate at one time, again, as we know. So even if you think you've got your soil weed free, in the spring, another batch of weeds will come up. So I think the maintenance levels reduce. You can direct sow, which means it's the cheapest form of landscape, isn't it? You're never going to create a landscape any cheaper than direct sowing. And your ongoing maintenance obviously is reduced, because if the weed seeds come in, obviously that doesn't mean they don't come in. It just means you have longer to pull them out. You know what I mean? They grow slower, so you have more chance to pull them out. And the mixture of weeds that you're dealing with is much narrower, in comparison to when you're dealing with topsoil.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of advantage with that. That's without the fact that if you introduce low nutrient soils, you generally are going to get a more diverse plant community on the whole. Yeah. It's just a fascinating subject, and I think maybe because I've come through, I haven't had any training in horticulture or landscape or anything else to do with our industry. Maybe that means you can be slightly more, you can think, well, maybe we don't have to use topsoil. I mean, I wouldn't even know what the British standard for topsoil is.
I think it's a massive advantage. You haven't been indoctrinated by some sort of college or university that you must do it this way, you must do it that way. I think that's the way. That's a massive advantage, I reckon.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Now, I'm doing more talks and I'm meeting lots more people. You realise, that kind of lack of base knowledge, and especially with plant names and a lot of other stuff that I would have had with basic horticultural training. It is a bit annoying not to have that, but it is what it is. Yeah.